It's been hot this summer. My lawn has gotten very tan. Look how tan it is. Just so you know, it's a very, very cold day in September. It's 93 degrees and, well, yeah, it's hot for some places. It's been over 110 for the past month. So this does feel nice and cool. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend staying out too long in the heat, but boy, it sure is better than what it was. So as you can see, I'm here in the middle of nowhere next to a cactus with a bunch of prickly pears. You see how it's so tan on this grass out here? Well, haven't had a lot of rain this summer, but prickly pears always do just fine without a lot of rain. So you need a bucket and you need some tongs, because prickly pears are prickly, and we'll show you how to make something from them. All right, I'm going to demonstrate the grabbing technique. You can't just pull straight off, you kind of have to twist it off. And then you grab the next one and twist. And drop it in your bucket. Next one. And twist. It's really important when you're picking these things. You know, it's really easy to just say, oh, I can just barely reach it. But you got to be careful, because, as you see, there's dead cactus and prickles all around here. The whole cactus is prickly, so you got to be careful about touching it. So don't get too focused on getting all the beautiful prickly pears that are just right there. Just get the ones that are safe, because once you get these things, the prickles will be everywhere. Also, you want to have some that are nice, beautiful, purple. But you also want to have some with a little bit of green at the bottom, because the green, like that, means there's a bit more pectin in it. You don't want too much green. So like this one here, you could deal with that one if you had a whole bunch of beautiful dark ones, because if they're too dark, if you leave them for too long, they get super duper dark, and then they don't jelly very well. While you're picking these things, you may notice dust coming off of them. That's not dust, those are prickly pear prickles. So when you get a container to put these in to take them home, you have to have a lid for that container, or these prickles will get everywhere. So my wife got really mad at me about when I told her I was going to pick prickly pears, until I told her I got a lid for the bucket and they won't get everywhere. So hopefully they won't get everywhere. That remains to be seen. But take some precaution. These prickles float and they get everywhere. But I think the jelly is worth it. It's been about 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes. Got this thing full. Never touched a single prickly pear, and yet I still got a prickle stuck in my hand. So I got to go home and take care of that. And also make sure that you cover everything up real nicely so that the prickles don't get all over your car. Also, the tool you were using, if you have a spare container, put it in so that whatever prickles are on it don't get on anything else. You should do that. And, well, I came prepared with another container. This here is a steam juicer. This is the safest way to get juice out of your prickly pears. I will show you how I use it. And then I'll show you the better way to get juice from prickly pears, because it makes better flavor. This is the bottom part of the steam juicer. You fill it with water. You have marbles in it, because when the water's boiling, the marbles jump around and make noise, and when you start running out of water, the marbles stop making noise, and that's your cue to put more water into it. But you don't put cold water into it. You have a pot of boiling water on the side that you use to refill. And usually you operate these things for like a couple hours at a time or longer, so you need to have a lot of water in it. And those are just regular old glass marbles from whatever. It really doesn't matter, because they're going to get boiled and cleaned anyways. Just make sure they're not like caked in mud or something, or dirty. And that should be enough water. This is the middle section. It has the hose that you get juice from. The juice collects in here. It goes on top of the bottom section on the stove. And just turn the heat on as high as you can get it. It's okay to start it getting hot before you got everything together, because it takes a while to boil water. Interesting fact, those little white things on these prickly pears are actually bugs that are used to make really, really awesome red dye. But it really doesn't affect the flavor of the prickly pear or anything. So, I mean, if you're really into fabric dyeing, you can collect them all, but I'm not, so I'm just making jelly from them. Make sure to rinse off your tools when you're done with them, because those prickles are really small and hard to see, and they get on everything. So, I only touched the rim of the bucket a couple of times, but if you look closely, you probably can't see it, but I have a splinter in my hand about there. And I'm going to have a hard time getting it out because it's hard to see, and it's uncomfortable. Anyways, all I did was touch the edge of this bucket with my knuckle a couple of times. So, you want to put the lid back on your bucket. Make sure it's nice and tight. Don't leave them there for too long or it'll get really weird. As you can see, I have filled this up as full as I can get. It took a lot more than I thought. And once this thing starts steaming and boiling, the prickly pears will break down from the steam and the juice will come out and collect here. And when this thing starts holding juice in it, then you know that it's time to put the juice in a container. And you want to set it up so that this hose is low enough that it'll fill up, and this clamp is supposed to keep things from coming out. Anyways, hose will fill up with juice, and that'll let you know that you've got juice to get rid of, and the juice will be hot enough that if you put it straight into a sterilized jar and lid, you can just close it up and it'll be sealed just fine and last for I don't know how long. I never let them go too long, but in theory you could do that to can it, but you could also water bath it afterwards just to be safe. I'm going to show you what I do to kind of quickly get some jars done. Alright, these jars and these lids, okay, the white parts with the rubber, they've never been used before, but all these other bits, they've been washed, but they've been sitting in storage for several months since they were last used, so I'm just going to give them a good rinse before I stick them into my steam sterilizer. Actually, it's just an electric pressure pot, but it works really well. Alright, so I could only fit 2 in there, and so it's still 2 jars, so the prickly pears do make a bit of juice, but it doesn't come all at once, so I'll have time to sterilize some more once these 2 jars get full. Anyways, to sterilize these, I'll add a little bit of water in the bottom. I don't need a lot, because actually I'm just making this an autoclave, which is high pressure steam, and it kills everything, and they use it in the medical industry all the time. But I got to get my thing set up. Now that it's plugged in and closed up and ready to go, I'm going to go to, actually I want to do manual. I want to do it high pressure, so that's 15 pounds of pressure, which is what they do for autoclaves. And honestly, I don't want to do it this long. I only need to do it for a half hour, and then it'll be good enough. So once I get it set to a half hour, then we let it go, and it'll sterilize those things once it's all done. And I got to make sure that it'll keep pressure, because last time I used it, I vented the pressure manually. Alright, so it's all covered in water. It's on the stove. Now, since I have the lid on the bottom of it, I can put it on as high heat as I want. But if you didn't have a lid on the bottom of this thing to keep it off of the hot element, you can just turn the heat down to a much lower temperature and cook it on a medium-low to boil. But I want to do it on high because a big pot like this that's really thin might not ever boil if it's not on high. You hear that? Not the fan, but that clank and clatter, that's the marbles telling me that this thing is starting to boil, which is what we want. So it will be sounding like that the entire time. Actually, it'll be a little bit stronger, but that's okay. Since you put the marbles in there, that's just fine to hear that sound. If you don't have marbles in there, something's wrong. Now this here is my setup for, I think, my favorite part of the prickly pear preparation process. If you're going to juice them with a mechanical juicer, it produces a better flavor, but there's some more interesting work that you got to do, and yes, I am going to be using that propane torch. It's needed. Alright, so once you get these all set up on these cookie sheets, make sure you have a pot holder underneath the cookie sheets. Take that propane torch that I was talking to you about earlier, and you use it to burn off all the prickles. Alright, so you want to take the torch and you want to burn off the prickles. I like to do one side first and then get the other side. But you see how they glow? Kind of go till they stop glowing, and that's how you know they're gone, because they can't glow if they're gone. So when you're done burning them, they should be completely glossy, whereas the one in the grabbers is rather matte. They come off the cactus matte, but after you torch them, they're glossy, and it looks like I missed a couple of spots on these. Alright, so it's been a long while, so when I opened this, juice started to come in, which is a good sign. So I've got a sterilized jar right here, and then I take this and I'll do that with
filming. You can't stop that bolt from growing.
It's hot, so you want to wear oven gloves, and I'm holding it up here so that I don't spill, because I don't know how much juice is in there, but I do know it'll be very, 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 very hot.
Got nothing in my pear.
So it's been about 15 minutes, so I'm going to open this up, take out my jars of juice, put them over here. Let me try that again. Grab the juice out from there, bring it out over here, and we let it sit until it's cooled. And now I have prickly pear juice for making other things. I'm going to show you some other recipes in some other videos. Prickly pear jelly, prickly pear hard candy. Another interesting tidbit about prickly pears, so the early ripening variety produce a nice pinkish red color. When they get really, really ripe, they turn a very dark burgundy, but they always look red. The later ripening variety, at least around here where I live, they turn a very, very dark purple, almost black. I prefer the earlier ripening varieties, but they both taste good.